It was the kind of night that reminded Sarah of every lonely memory she had tried to bury. The sky was tearing apart with lightning, and the rain was so fierce that it felt like the heavens were punishing the earth. Her little house creaked with every gust of wind, and she wrapped herself tighter in the frayed blanket her late mother had made when she was a child. Nights like these were always the worst. Too cold, too loud, and too lonely. But it wasn't the storm that unsettled her tonight. It was what she saw through her rain-speckled window. Under the flickering street light, barely standing, was a man she had noticed before. His figure was gaunt, soaked through to the bone, his face half covered by a dirty, unkempt beard. He wasn't like the usual homeless wanderers in their town. Something about his presence was different. Something in his posture and those eyes that stared blankly at the ground. She had watched him over the past few weeks, wandering the alleys, sleeping behind the dumpster near the diner where she worked 12-hour shifts, but she had never dared approach him. Until tonight. The storm was merciless, the kind that could drown a soul, and she couldn't let that man die in it. Without thinking twice, Sarah pulled on her worn-out coat, stepped into her thin slippers, and ran into the rain. Her hair clung to her face, the cold instantly cutting through her skin, but she kept her eyes on the hunched figure. "Sir," she called out, panting against the wind, "please, come inside. You'll freeze out here." The man looked up, eyes wide with suspicion, almost as if no one had spoken to him in years. He didn't say a word, just stared at her like some kind of ghost. "I have a garage," she said, her voice trembling, not from fear, but from the cold. "It's not much, but it's dry. You can rest there for the night." He shook his head faintly, stepping back, mistrust written all over his face. "Please," she begged. "I don't have much, but I can't watch you die out here." There was a long pause before he nodded silently, following her as she led him to the small, dusty garage behind her house. She switched on the dim bulb, its weak glow revealing boxes, old tools, and a battered couch that looked like it belonged in a junkyard. "You can stay here tonight," she said softly. "Wait here. I'll get you something warm to drink." She rushed back inside, made a cup of hot tea, and brought an extra blanket, the one she kept for winter nights. When she returned, he was sitting on the couch, staring at the floor, as if unsure whether this was a dream or a trick. "I'm Sarah," she introduced herself. "What's your name?" But the man said nothing. He just took the tea with shaking hands and sipped it slowly. Sarah didn't press him. She just smiled and said, "Sleep well," before leaving him to rest. The next morning, unsure if he'd still be there, she peeked inside the garage. He was sitting up, alert, but still cautious. She offered him bread and eggs, and for days this became their silent exchange. She brought him food. He gave her nothing but wordless glances of gratitude. It wasn't until the 5th day that he finally spoke. His voice was gravelly, unused. "Michael," he said simply. "My name is Michael." Sarah smiled warmly. "Nice to meet you, Michael." Bit by bit, he opened up. He told her that he used to be someone important, though he didn't say much more. A businessman, he said, a long time ago. But when his wife died in a car accident, everything crumbled. Depression swallowed him whole, dragging him deeper into isolation. He lost his company, his house, his friends. He walked away from it all, or maybe he just let it all disappear because he didn't know how to keep living. Sarah listened carefully, never judging, because grief was a language she understood well. Her parents had died in a house fire when she was 16. Since then, life had been a series of battles, working dead-end jobs, scraping by in a crumbling house, with dreams of becoming a teacher one day that always felt just out of reach. "You're still alive, Michael," she said quietly one day. "That counts for something. You're still someone." Over the weeks, Michael found his strength slowly returning. He offered to help fix things around her property. He repaired her leaky roof, unclogged the stubborn sink, and even rebuilt the broken fence that bordered her tiny backyard. His hands remembered skills that his heart had long forgotten. Sarah didn't pay him. She had little to give, but she cooked meals for both of them, and sometimes, in the quiet moments, they shared stories about what their lives could have been. But one morning, Michael was gone. Sarah's heart sunk. She checked the garage, the nearby streets, even the back alley of the diner. No one had seen him. She spent days worrying, imagining the worst, that he'd relapsed into hopelessness, that he was lying somewhere dead from the cold. Weeks passed, then months. She mourned the loss of her quiet, peculiar companion, feeling as though she had failed to help him truly heal. Then, on a bright spring afternoon, a sleek black car pulled up to her tiny, battered house. She watched from the porch, stunned, as a tall man in a tailored suit stepped out, his hair neat, his beard trimmed. His eyes, though sharper, were unmistakable. "Michael," she gasped, unable to believe it. He smiled. "Hello, Sarah." Behind him, more cars arrived, people in suits carrying briefcases and documents. She stood there, speechless, as Michael explained everything. He hadn't just been a businessman. He was the founder of a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Even though he'd abandoned it all, his name was still tied to assets, investments, and partnerships that had continued to thrive without him. When Sarah showed him kindness, something inside him reawakened, the desire to live, to reclaim his identity. He told her he had returned to his business, regained control of his empire, and sought professional help to mend his mind. But he hadn't forgotten her. Not for a second. "You gave me shelter when I had nothing," he said, "and now I want to give you a home." She shook her head furiously. "I didn't help you to get anything back, Michael. I couldn't let you die in the rain." "And that's why you deserve everything," he replied gently. Michael had bought her a beautiful house, one with a garden, bright windows, a cozy library, and even a small building out back that he had transformed into a teaching center. He remembered her dream of becoming a teacher, and now she could teach children in the community for free, offering the education she had once been denied. At first, Sarah struggled with the sudden gift. She wrestled with guilt, pride, and confusion. She wasn't used to having anything handed to her, and part of her wanted to refuse it all. But Michael sat her down one evening in the garden, watching the sunset paint the sky. "You helped me for nothing, Sarah," he said. "This isn't charity. This is respect. This is gratitude. And maybe fate." Sarah finally understood. Sometimes life brought people together for reasons beyond understanding. She accepted his gift, not as charity, but as the fruit of a friendship born in the darkest storm. They remained close friends, their bond growing deeper over the years. Together, they ran the teaching center, offering not just education, but hope to children who felt forgotten. Michael invested in shelters, community programs, and even started initiatives to rehabilitate the homeless, because he knew from experience that sometimes all it took was one warm place, one kind person to change a life. And every evening, as Sarah watched her students laugh and learn, she reminded herself and them that kindness wasn't just a gift, it was a seed. Because on that cold, stormy night, she gave a stranger shelter, and in return, she gained a family, a purpose, and proof that even in the harshest storms, a single act of compassion could rewrite a destiny. And so neither of them was ever truly alone again.